So let me start the session now. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Parents Talk on Raising Young Inventors by Dr. Marci Klein. I'm Nancy Soon, your moderator for this session. Our guest speaker today is Dr. Marci Klein, a pediatrician based in the United States of America. She trained at New York University for both clinical and academic pediatrics and has over 20 years experience as a community physician. She is also a mom of two inventors, Ethan and Ayana, who created STEM learning kits 3 years ago and presented at the US National Invention Convention in 2018. Since they launched the company, Three Ducks Design, Dr. Marci has taken time from her busy medical career to join the Three Ducks team and support her own kids' vision for the product and has helped build the company, which now has sold thousands of STEM kits direct to customer and in schools with distribution on 3 continents. Dr. Marci will share her personal experience raising young inventors and some insights from a pediatrician's perspective. Throughout the talk, please feel free to post your questions for Dr. Marci in the Q&A, which is at the bottom of your screen. We will take your questions and Dr. Marci will answer most of them live during the session. Dr. Marci, our attendees are most interested in your story of how you raised your children to become inventors. Please tell us.
Sure. So I suppose best place to start is at the beginning. My kids, when they were little, were really extremely creative, and they were not the kind of kids that sat on a laptop or a phone playing with digital content. They were very, very hands-on. And in fact, cardboard was probably our favorite toy. So every day we would have forts, doll houses, you name it, in the middle of the living room. So when they got a little bit older, they were really into a lot of the engineering classes, maker events, stuff like that. And my daughter, who was very artistic as well, decided to take an architecture class one summer because she saw all the models that they were making. And what she did come home with after a summer in architecture was the fact that architects do, in fact, do a lot of what she used to do with her little brother, which was building and modeling. And she decided that it would be a really cool product for children that would blend art and creative play with modeling, engineering, and a lot of science in there with physics and engineering concepts. So she decided to develop an architecture kit for kids. And her little brother, who was learning 3D printing at the time, and she got together and created this product. And I thought it was a really cute little business idea. So I was all for it, you know, kept them busy, kept them off their phones. And we went to a local soccer tournament one day with a bunch of first graders, about 100 first graders, and took out these cut up pieces of cardboard, these little connectors that they had designed. I can show you an example of one right here, but there's all different colors and shapes. They 3D printed them all. They set up a little tent, and not one child played soccer. So parents were flocking around the booth, children were flocking around the booth, coaches were upset because nobody was playing soccer, and that was the birth of their company. It was amazing to see my kids create something and have such an impact on other children. So a few months later, my son actually did the National Invention Convention with this product in Michigan at the Henry Ford Museum. and won their SEMI award. And we, ever since then, have really not looked back. My daughter, who is now in college, and my son, who's still a senior in high school, are helping to run the business. I took time off as a pediatrician because I saw something in this product that I think is really important for kids, which is hands-on creative play, no instructions. It's just put cardboard and connectors out there and let kids play. And it really brings out the creativity and the inventor and the innovator in every child. So I've been helping my kids build this business from an idea into now an international product. It's been quite a pathway. And if you have little inventors down there, over there, inspire them, support them, but know that they're in there with you. It's a lot of work, but extremely rewarding.
Thank you. That's quite a story. With your 20 years experience being a very busy parent, just like many professionals would attest to, how did you, during the raising of Ethan and Ayana, keep them occupied when you, as a busy mom, would probably be with the community rather than being at home?
Yeah, how did I keep them busy? I'm a very creative person as well, and I'm not one for complicated toys or reading instructions. As a doctor, we do a lot of reading. So the last thing I would want to do at 5 in the afternoon is read some complicated 80-page of instructions to put together some gizmo. And the truth is, my kids, when they were little, they weren't reading instructions. So we did a lot more of artistic, craft-like, hands-on creative play. So as I had said, like cardboard, cutting up cardboard boxes at that time, because my kids hadn't invented 3-ducks, it was duct tape and hot glue guns, it was paint, and I got in there with them. It was a creative outlet for me, being busy and rushing all day from patient to patient, having the opportunity to sit with my kids, play with them, and really just watch and support them as they come up with really crazy, cockamamie, projects and inventions. And, I know as a pediatrician, getting there with your kids, playing with them, but giving them as much room for creativity and trying not to lead them in any direction is really important. I've seen parents, say, obviously we do a lot of events, or we have, especially when we were starting out, and parents would repeatedly tell their children, no, that's not really what a house looks like. You shouldn't put, the window. I think that's a window and a door. I don't think that belongs on the roof. And I would tell the parent, if the person who invented the skylights, mom, told them that windows don't belong on the roof, no one would ever have a skylight in this world. Let your child create, it's a model. We're not making a real bridge. If it falls, it's okay. That's how they learn. Let them be as creative as possible. Don't close doors for them. Let them be inventors. So that's what we did with our kids, always encouraging them to try different things, never telling them how something works, letting them figure it out for themselves.
All right, that's really interesting. Then talking about no instructions earlier, when you mentioned, I'm very interested, as being an Asian mom, many of us believes that children, as they're growing up, needs to be scaffolded and they need to have instructions in order to know what to do. So how do you strike that balance between no instructions in terms of their learning and versus getting them to fulfill whatever their obligations is during their growing years?
For sure. Well, in our education system, children get enough rules in school. They get more than enough rules in school. A lot of bubble tests, a lot of exams where there's only one right answer. So in this country, I don't worry so much about them learning how to follow rules, because I think they have too many in in plenty of places. So I don't really worry about that. There are rules of the world and science, and they will discover them the way cavemen discovered them. So if they climb a tree and they fall, and a branch breaks because they picked too skinny a branch, that's maybe not a great mistake to make. So in those cases, I might say, Ethan, that's a really skinny branch and you're getting to be a big boy and there's a good chance that will break. If you want to try it, go ahead. But that's my recommendation. So those are like gentle suggestions. And then I always recommend that you try to let your child make that final decision. You can give your advice, but let the child kind of play with that and decide and experiment a little. In our kits that we've made, I know that a lot of parents in this country as well, they find comfort in rules. And the first thing they ask is, how do you do it? So the way we balance it in our product is that we have, for example, like I have a kit here. Here's an example of our firehouse. All of the pieces that are needed to make this are in the kit, plus many more. And on our instructions, what we have is a blown up picture of the cards. It's a little challenging to really decipher it on purpose, because we want the kids to maybe start thinking that they're going to be building that model, but as they are challenged to get the 3D concept of the puzzle that we put it in front of them, they will come up with creative ideas in the process. So that sort of instruction, almost like the cover of a puzzle, you can see the puzzle, how it could be completed. But in our case, it gives kids just enough structure and understanding of what they're supposed to make to get them started. But almost never in the 3 years have I seen a child make exactly what's on the cover. They usually will start to feel comfortable. And that's a little bit of the scaffolding that I talk about. And I found that the same thing with teachers when we do lesson plans. We start teachers off with something very concrete where a task like calculate, measure the product and calculate the perimeter. Because teachers know there's a right and a wrong answer. And then we start, as the lessons progress, to encourage more open-ended, where there's not really one answer to the challenge. So same with teachers, same with parents, same with kids. If they need it, we have a little bit of structure for them, but not so much that they don't have to make any decisions.
Great. That's really something that I think we in Asia needs to try and attempt and focus on how we raise our children with less instructions. I think from day one, most of the parents over in Asia believes that children, as they're young, needs to live with instructions in their lives and to gradually grow from there. So much so that children come to expect to be told what to do next, which becomes one of the, I would say, the millennials' problem of what subject should I go for in the university? So I like to ask you, with Anna having gone to the university now, did she have trouble making any decisions during the last 4 or 5 years before she embarked on the current choice?
Absolutely, absolutely. And every child is different. So, I've got two. One, the older one, Ayana, who's in university, is very much of the mindset is, there's a right way to do things. She has, unfortunately, even with the development of her own product, it's been trained and it's part of her nature to follow rules and to be more comfortable with rules and feel like there's a right answer. So even to this day, she knew well, she didn't know exactly going into college what she wanted to do, but she knew she wanted to go into business. And I, as a parent, tried to recommend she takes many classes and not only business, because even if she goes into business, so many of those other experiences impact the way you do business. So the architecture, which she loves, you know, she had a challenge taking those classes and not focusing on her career. And even to this day, as she's looking for internships, you know, she feels like this summer internship is the pathway to her future. And we were in a lecture once, and a famous founder of a multi-million-dollar company said something that I always remember. There's no straight pathways in life. And if you do have a straight pathway, it's not very interesting. Take turns, take excursions, move, you know, because that'll, even in the end, when you do go on a straight pathway, all of those experiences they impact the way you live your life and the way you do your career. And it gives you so much more depth and understanding of the world around you when you experience so many different things. So, you know, for that child, I try to encourage her to really explore other areas. And she might find a passion through her business school in engineering or in art or in, you know, marketing, because that brings in a lot of the art and creativity with business. But only by exploring those can she really know. The other child is the opposite. He doesn't know what he wants to do. Well, he does. I mean, you know, he's getting older, but he's much more interested in exploring a million different things and experiencing all different things and not committing to one thing. So it really, you know, it really depends on the child. Some you have to push to explore more, and some you have to actually get like, no, you have to focus, do your math. You know, so a lot of it is dependent on the child. And, you know, they're all different. So.
Right. Thank you. That's an interesting position that you have taken in the raising of your two children. So maybe I should switch now and count on your professional hat as a pediatrician. What is your perspective, especially today, where many parents have taken to using digital media to keep their children occupied, and in raising their children to count on the presence of digital media in their lives?
Yeah. So, you know, the kids' company came at a great time. I think, you know, I've been a pediatrician, acting as a pediatrician in a clinical setting for over 20 years. And what I've noticed over the course of years, now the iPhone came out in the middle of that. So unfortunately, I'm old enough to have seen life before all of the digital and seen the transition. And for me, in the office, I was seeing children come in at 2, literally 2, knowing how to poke on their iPad and completely engaged in the iPad. And I mean, it was good for me as a pediatrician in some cases, because I could do anything I wanted with the kid, put my stethoscope, look in their ears, as long as I didn't ruin their game. It was great. From a social and development perspective, it wasn't so good. By the time kids in the United States get into kindergarten, they've actually discovered that a lot of them don't have appropriate use of writing utensils, because they're poking all the time. They're not learning the craft of handwriting from a really early age. So some of that fine motor is already being lost by the time they're in kindergarten. And that's the physical detriments to using too much digital media. The social and emotional side of it is that you, as a pediatrician, want to make eye contact with your patient. Teens, and unfortunately in this country, some of the parents are on their phone during an exam and conversing with someone else during the checkup. So there's a loss of even an understanding of that's not even socially appropriate during time with your doctor. So that's kind of what we're going towards in this country. So one of the things that I really focus on with parents is downtime away from digital. And I know digital is here to stay, and I'm not afraid of it. You know, it's just a matter of setting boundaries and it being at appropriate times. So I recommend to parents, there should be a golden time every day. It doesn't matter if it's 20 minutes or 2 hours where you and your child are playing together, hands-on, no digital. And it sounds hard for some parents that are not used to setting those boundaries. They have to be set from the beginning. There's room for decision making, as I was talking about before, and choices and letting your child have autonomy and be creative, but there are boundaries, and those boundaries do have to be set at an early age. So there's room for choices and decisions, but there's also like hard stops. So for our, you know, our home, it's like food, mealtime, no digital. And then there's always a period of time where we're all working together or talking together, or when we were little playing together with no digital. And that's where kids learn communication skills, eye contact skills, social skills. When kids are on their digital all the time, they don't learn those social skills of eye contact, reading facial expressions from other people. There are so many non-tangible things that you learn from experiencing life in real world that you cannot replicate in a digital world. So that's our take on digital. The other side of it is that we know it's here and we know it's here to stay, and we don't try to hide children from it. It's a matter of using it appropriately and also using it the right amount of time and balancing it with the rest of the world.
All right, that is really, really great reminder, you know, from your professional perspective of what you see, even during the physical examination of a child. I'm surprised because I would have thought that parents would be, oh, well, digital media aside, you know, the focus would be on how is my child?
Yes, that was one of the things that, you know, and it was also more in this country, you know, electronic records came out as well. So here I am telling people to make eye contact with me, and I'm sitting there typing as well. And it was a not, you know, by the time I transitioned to help my children, not only did I feel like it was critical because it's a material and product that does get kids off of digital, but it was also at a time where I was getting a little bit frustrated in medicine because I have a teenage patient on her phone with one earbud in, only literally half listening to me because she had an earbud on the other side, a mom on her phone, and I'm asking questions and typing, and it all seemed very clinical, and there was like not as much of an art to it. So it was a very timely, you know, and that's one of the things that I got so excited about their product that decided, I mean, I trained for 9 years and I worked for 20 years in pediatrics, and I'm passionate and love working with kids. But I saw this opportunity to open doors that I think are closing in this world. And that was one of the things that helped me make it an easier decision to transition to help my kids grow this company, because I see that it's not just my kids' product and company that I want them to grow, but I really truly believe in the product and the value that it brings, which helped me make that decision. It's a tough decision, you know, when your kid's an inventor and passionate about what they're doing, and they want to take it to the next level, and you don't know what to do next. I mean, I'm a pediatrician. I've never taken a business class. And here I have this product that kids love. I think it's a good thing. And my kids are passionate and excited about the feedback that they've gotten. So if your kids are doing that and whatever they present at the Invention Convention looks viable, be aware you're in it with them. It's not a passive thing. It's a 24-hour event for me for the last 3 years. I mean, it's been great and rewarding. but the kids aren't gonna run it at the beginning. They are definitely gonna need a lot of support if they're gonna take it, you know, the places that we've taken our product. Definitely not passive.
So Dr. Marci, you are very hands-on parent. So that makes a lot of difference in Ethan and Anna's life. I have here now a couple of questions. So I'd like to direct some of these questions that are coming in from parents. The first one is, how did you get your kids to balance studying and their other interests?
Yeah. Well, again, every child is different. My daughter was one who always, like, it didn't matter what the teacher said about a new club or a new team before they even finished, she raised her hands. So she was on soccer, she was on dance, she played piano amazingly well for 15 years until she went to college. Yeah, from 5 to 18. So discipline is tough. I think it's setting boundaries from an early age and not overly scheduling your children. And again, I don't know what it's like in Singapore. In this country, children are busy from the moment, sometimes before school. They wake up and they're doing something before school till they go to bed at night. There's almost no downtime. So for my daughter, who always wanted to do everything, it was the challenge to not overly schedule her and make sure that there's always time during the week for open-ended free play. My son, again, opposite. He could easily do nothing most of the afternoon. So it was more a matter of making sure that he had time where he had to be doing his academics. But it's really a matter of making sure you set certain expectations from a really early age, that there are times that are specially set aside for doing the things that we need to do. And we also ascribe very often to the carrot and stick approach, where there are rewards for completing. You know, we're not ones for punishment. And this is what I tell my patients all the time. Punishment can be reworded into reward. So it's really the way you phrase it. So to us, going to a birthday party, it's not that you won't go to that birthday party if you get your homework done. If you don't get your homework done, we twist it to going to a birthday party is an exciting reward, and you will be rewarded by getting to go to that party if you get your homework done. So it empowers the child to make that decision and feel like they get a sense of reward because of it, rather than feeling like they're punished for bad behavior. And if you practice that approach from a really early age, they feel more positive about the things that they do and less negative about the things that are being imposed on them. So it's like just a little tweak in the way you converse with your child, and you treat them with respect and always make them feel like it's their choice that they're doing as much as you can. I mean, you know, if they want to run across the street and a car's coming, there's no choice, you know, that's an absolute rule. But as much as you can, let children make those choices for themselves, so that they feel ownership of it.
Right. This is fantastic, because you stressed very much on the way we communicate with our children. You know, once again, it's back to instructional mode versus the communicating, as you mentioned, the carrot and stick approach. This leads to one of the attendees who actually asked what to do when the child is not motivated. Because your approach that you've just given about that communication is fantastic. But if a child is not motivated, then the carrot and stick method may not actually be effective. So from a professional perspective, what would you recommend in this case, or as advice?
Yeah. So you know, obviously there's all different kids, and this technique will work way better for some than others. But almost every child has some kinds of carrot. whether it be a cupcake or a little reward or an activity that they get to go to. So especially with those headstrong kids, trying as hard as you can to get the action done that you want done, but letting them feel like it's their choice. That I think, you know, and of course it works better for some than others, but that's the gold standard that you want to try to obtain, because it's so much easier to get kids to do something when they're buying into it and they do it out of free will rather than being forced to do it. So, you know, there should always be some kind of carrot out there that works for every child, whether it be time playing, or if it's an older kid going to a music concert or a party that they want to go to later that day. And for every child, that carrot will be different. You just kind of have to figure out. What I did when my kids were little, we actually, I don't know if you know, like, I don't have any here, like little rubber ducks. Like they're little, like they cost, I don't know how much in Singapore, but $1 in this country. You buy, we used to have 100 of them. And we would actually recycle them, but they would get little ducks for good behavior or whatever the activity of the week was that I wanted them to do every day. So if it's cleaning their room, every time they clean their room, they'd get a little duck. And it sounds silly because it's like the trophy, you know, it's not about the duck itself. It's about the reward, the feeling of a reward. And the nice thing about the ducks is that they could line them up on their windowsill and see the pride as they accumulated more and more ducks. And when they got to 12 ducks, they were actually allowed to trade those ducks in for a special duck, which was a glow in the dark duck. So for like 20 bucks, like for literally a year, I had them going, you know, with more and more feeling a sense of accomplishment and a reward. Now, not every kid will be excited about a duck, but there should be something that they can work towards.
Okay, thank you very much on that.
And not all kids are motivated at all times. My daughter got to like near professional level of piano, but from 5 to about 13, getting her to practice piano every day was an ongoing challenge. So, you know, you're never going to have that kid that does everything that you want all the time. There's always going to be some kind of agreements and concessions on both sides.
Right. Now, whilst you were talking, someone typed, one of the attendee by name of Yap typed in how to use. Perhaps you could tell us further by typing in, what do you mean by how to use? What are you referring to?
About what?
No, I'm speaking to the attendee. Oh. Yeah, because I don't know whether it was before the sentence is completed. So I don't know what this refers to. So whilst we're waiting for you to provide us, let me go to another question that came in. In Asia, the focus tends to be on grades and not completely accepting of failure. The process of inventing requires acceptance of failure. How would you try and convince parents to allow their kids to explore inventing and that it's okay to fail?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, I do think it's more of a problem for parents than that's a problem to address with the child. It's really about the parenting and convincing parents that failure is okay. And the challenge I know in this country is that modern parents who grew up in our education system very similarly have been graded and tested their whole life, and their life hangs on our SATs to get into college and our GPA and our ranking. It's a challenge in this country as well to try to explain to those parents that failure is a really important critical component to their upbringing, and that they need to fail to understand how to pivot and you know, and how to learn from their failures and grow. How you do that, I think, is about training and talking to parents. I do that as a pediatrician. And I think that's just guidance and teaching parents that it's okay, and really a critical part. A good way for parents to help children understand that is for parents themselves to make mistakes and to not get all bent out of shape about it and panic and accept it. So, and I'm just like, this is not something in my training that I've ever mentioned before or even thought about, but it's a good thing for children to follow. So if you're baking with your child, and you could even intentionally mess up the proportions of your cookies and come out with cookie soup and laugh about it, you know? Like, I think children need to understand, like, that you don't freak out and panic and feel bad about yourself when a mistake happens. It's a normal and important pathway to learning process. You know, in our household, we have the benefit, we have 2 doctors. My husband's a doctor and I'm a doctor. So when our child would fail at something and feel bad, we have such an in-depth perspective because we see sick children and unfortunately children that have a really bad diagnosis every day of our life. So I don't know if it's right or wrong, but when the children are upset because they got a C on a test or, you know, did not get a good grade, you say, well, I just saw someone this morning whose child has cancer. Like, that's a problem. That's a life-changing problem. Your math test is not a life-changing problem. It's a lesson and a way to learn what you did wrong and learn from it and do better the next time, or, you know, just learn those skills that you missed on that math test. It's a good way to know what you don't know, so you learn what you know. It doesn't matter what the grade is. It's, you know, you have to put life in perspective. So that's one of the things that we used to tell our children when they were growing up. But I think that parents really have to show the children that making mistakes is okay by believing that they're okay for themselves and responding to their own mistakes appropriately, because children will model what you do.
All right, thank you. Yes, I think what you just said is so important, being able to actually let the children understand things in perspective, you know, as you just mentioned, being a doctor, you know, having seen a child with cancer versus a math disappointment is really very far apart. In fact, this leads to the next question, which is what the attendee asked, because children are afraid of failure, just like what you've just mentioned. And how do you help them deal with it, which you have already addressed. So both questions actually together. Then we have another question here, which is about competition. Do you encourage kids to compete with one another? Example, see who can come up with a better invention. Is this a collaborative approach? Let's work together, or for a better invention, or allowing them to be competitive? What's your view?
Yeah, that's, you know, and it's something I think about a lot because there's so much competition. And, you know, I think children need both, to be honest. I think that they need, you know, the real world is competitive. You know, the first person to market with the better marketing campaign is going to win. You know, or you need to be creative and come up with a way around that. So life is competitive. You know, if you go back to evolution and look at animals, and, you know, the stronger person, you know, that could club the deer got the food. So competition is a normal part of this world, but so is collaboration. And I think both are really important. I think when it comes to more concrete signs of success, like a test, where there's a grade, even though the person who did not win might feel poorly, it's not a judgment on them as a human and their creative and their innovative spirit. it's more, well, you got that question wrong and that was not the right answer. It's a very concrete, it's not a personal thing. When I think it comes to more creative stuff like our product, where every child will build a house and every house will be completely different, I don't think that those should be judged. Now, if they have a task to calculate the area and the volume of that house, that I think can be judged. But when it comes to something that's purely creative, I think we should celebrate differences and appreciate everyone's, and I don't believe that there should really be a trophy from the creative side. Now, there's competitions all over, and some of them are creativity-based competitions, but you can still take it through the judging process for very concrete, like, student wrote out an answer to all 5 components of the invention, so that when they don't win, it's because they only did 4 out of 5, not because their invention wasn't good enough. So I think we should never squash or make a child feel bad about their creativity and their artwork. It's more about the concrete side of it. There's of course crossover, but I do think both are important.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, then I think one of the things about competition is really here to stay. So it's very much in terms of, from the perspective, is how to balance between the measurement of what do you allow in terms of competition versus what would you allow them to collaborate and to work together. So I really love what you just mentioned about the creative aspect in terms of their development.
Mm-hmm.
So we have here Amy, who is asking how to, when you talk about creativity, it's been what we call how let parents trust creativity is a kind of important ability children should have. I think what Amy here is trying to say is that how do you actually get parents informed that creativity is an important ability that children should develop?
Yeah, I mean, I think, parenting books always talk about, if you get a book as a new parent, you have no idea what to do with this newborn. Even me as a pediatrician had no idea what to do with a newborn when I had one in my house. Parenting books, unfortunately, very often are very concrete. Put your baby on their back to sleep. Don't use blankets. From the very, this is how many ounces they should drink. It makes it seem like there's a rule book of all the concrete things that have to happen. I feel like parent training is the problem there. It's not the parent themselves. It's how they are taught to be a parent. Schools, again, in this country, they don't support necessarily the creativity. And some do. I mean, there's all different kinds of schools, but even, and in this country, a lot of kids start preschool literally at 2. Which I think is insane, but that's what they do here. And they come home from school. This is what your child learned today. That's what they're proud of. That's what they're all talking about on Facebook, what their child at 3 learned and what kind of curriculum, what kind of curriculum is for a 3-year-old? They should be playing. They shouldn't have a curriculum and learn this and this and this in school. They should be learning how to work with each other and play together and learn social skills. So I think the best way to help parents understand that is to be good guide or to guide them in that way. And that's the role of, in our country, the pediatrician and child care providers from early childhood. So we really have to shift the mindset there. It's a challenge because, the preschool teachers know they're heading off into school and there's all this bureaucracy in school and a focus on the academic. So I really think it really needs to be encouraged from the school systems and the child care facilities, the people that are trained to work with children, but also to train the parents.
Okay, thank you. So talking about creativity, perhaps I should actually link this up to talk about literacy. Talk about reading and storytelling. How does that help raise young inventors?
Yeah, and a lot of our lesson plans, actually, which I don't call them lesson plans, we call them design challenges, are based on reading. One thing about stories is they are full of creativity, and there is no right or wrong. It's pure creativity. So if you read a story with a child, they're given a scenario. They're living in another little world during the time of that story, and they're a part of that world. And it's a great jumping off point for starting a creative conversation, carrying that story on, and then using hands-on creative play to kind of finish or embellish that story. That's very different than our, like, quote, tiny house challenge, where they are being creative because they're designing a home, but they have very concrete parameters. It has to fit in this area and this volume, and it has to have a bathroom and a kitchen and this and that. When you read a story, you're just creating an entire creative universe for that child to kind of jump into. So we have, like, here, I have a book here. One of the books that we work with, we actually work with this author. It's called Box Attacks. It's about two little girls that both think that they are, they're stars at making boxes into structures. And lo and behold, they're both in the same class. And now neither one of them can be the star because they're competing. So you can tell how that story is going to go. They don't get along, they're competing, and then all of a sudden the two of them realize that they can make something even better if they build together. So that's a jumping off point. We'll read that story, or the teacher will read that story, and then take the children and challenge them to come up with their own individual structures, whatever they are, and then collaborate and put those two structures together, just like the little girls in the book, and create something new. So, so just creating that scenario for children, opening up a storyline, but letting them finish it through creative play is huge.
All right, thank you very much, Marci. I think that is great. So leading on to really the last question, I think we've covered all the 8 questions that came up from the audience, but now one personal question that I think that would be important for us to actually share with parents is, what type of toys would you recommend now that school holidays is here in Singapore, as well as the big holiday season is just right around the corner with Christmas, Thanksgiving for you, Christmas, and the New Year before the children head back to school?
For sure. So of course, I'm going to put in a plug for our product because it's now in Singapore. So for sure, Three Ducks would be an awesome holiday product. I mean, open-ended toys. You know, I'm not a fan of Lego's instructions, but I think there's a huge value to pouring a bunch of blocks and Legos on the floor, taking the instructions away and letting them play. And as we were just parlaying off the last conversation, incorporating storytelling in there, creating a little inspiration for what they're going to create, whether it be design a new zoo or design a new, you know, architectural, like a symphony, you know, like an opera house. Whatever the design challenge could be, but give them things that are open-ended. Number one, you'll have a kid that's busy for hours because they will never complete it or succeed because there is no end. It's just ongoing. So really open-ended creative products. You know, I don't know exactly what toys you have there, but certainly Three Ducks, cardboard, craft activities. There's a million things you can do with a few pieces of paper and folding and drawing and creating games out of them that, again, just paper is just paper, they have to create the activity out of it. So it really inspires creativity. Sometimes it's hard because kids don't know what to do. So you're down there with your kid playing with them. It is much easier to give them something digital and then they'll ignore you for 4 hours. You know, which works if you have to cook or go to the bathroom or something else, but it shouldn't be in a vacuum. It should be balanced with playing with your children.
All right, thank you so much. And now, as we come to the end, if there are any other questions, please post. This will be the last opportunity for you to ask Marci any questions that you may have. Right? If not, I'd like to thank Marci for sharing her personal experience with us, taking questions and answering most of these questions right here with us.
Oh,
we appreciate you taking your time to share your perspective too about how you raised 2 fine young inventors and who are still in school but running a successful business. Thank you all for joining us during this parent talk. If you like more of these type of sessions, please drop us an email to let us know. This marks the end of our program for day 1. Our next event begins tomorrow, Tuesday, 17th November at 3 p.m. and 6 p.m. where we will have 2 live judging sessions. All the inventors have booths, so do virtually walk around and take a look at their inventions. There are also booths featuring our past global winners and their inventions too. Next, of course, I would strongly recommend that you visit the 3 Ducks design booths and take a look at Ethan and Ayana, who are both manning the booth. If you have not seen Marci's children, this is the best time to go and take a look. At the same time, if you want to buy any of these products for the school holidays, drop by at the IDE Academy booth where we have brought in products from 3 Ducks Design and we are hosting it right there at our booth. We will be having our awards ceremony on the 4th of December at 10:30 a.m. right back here on this platform. So join us to find out which inventions emerge as winners. This is the end of this parent talk session. Thank you everyone for your participation and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow.